Week 7 in the NFL, it's survivor pools, and I've got a strategy for you guys that may just win your pools or get you that much closer. Let's take a look at scratching and surviving next. All right, guys, we are done with week 6 in NFL survivor pools. Week 7 coming up, and a lot of upsets, or a couple of big upsets last week, but didn't really throw too much of a monkey wrench in pools. I think most of you guys who were with me last week would be back here this week having survived. That would have been a different story had Buffalo lost to the Giants. They were on the doorstep, could not get it done. But the Philly lost to the Jets, San Francisco losing to Cleveland, probably knocked out about 10% of people in your pools. So congratulations if you'd advanced this far and you're still with me. We've got some interesting things to look at for this week that I want to get to in a second. First, though, guys, give us a like and give us a follow, because as we get deeper into the season, you know, more and more people start dropping out of survivor pools. These videos don't become or are not nearly as popular as they are in the beginning of the year. So you would be doing me a huge favor if you could like this video and subscribe. And also, take a look at the Sharp app. Use code SURVIVOR if you want to get the pro version of the Sharp app. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you are into prop betting, we've got the best prop tool on the market called the Proptimizer. I use that tool to figure out the props that I'm going to take for MLB, NFL. Last week in the NFL, I had 3 reception props, all of which hit. I got them all through the Proptimizer, the top props version of the Proptimizer. I just kind of filtered through it. I look for the best picks that I like, and then based on my models and my projections, if they agree with what the top props has, I go ahead and fire at it. 3-0 last week. I believe undefeated the week prior as well. So we're on a really good run on the top props. You're going to want to check that out inside of the Sharp app. And if you're on Prize Picks, it's the best tool to defeat Prize Picks as well. So check it out. Use code SURVIVOR. Now let's jump into what we've got going on this week. It's an interesting week. I'm going to open up the Survivor grid so we can talk about it in greater length. So let's just take a look at what we've got here. Buffalo at New England, and Seattle at Arizona. Those are your 2 biggest favorites of the week. You see, obviously, most of the money or most of the picks are going on Buffalo and Seattle. 53% just about on Seattle right now. Why is that? Well, one, everyone has Seattle left. No one's taken them. And they've got very little future value. Now, you could take them in week 10 here against Washington. You have other options. Cincinnati is probably still available to you. Vegas potentially would be available to you. You could see in week 9, you may want to take Vegas. So you're going to have some other options, but Seattle, not a terrible pick come week 10 if you were to save them. Now, why would you want to save them? Well, we're going to get into that in a minute. But if you have Buffalo left and you're in a small pool, I would strongly advise Buffalo this week in smaller size pools because of how many people are going to be on Seattle. Now, if you're in a small pool, you're going to have the ability to look at each and everyone's pick. Like if there were only 10 people left in your pool, it's going to be very easy for you to see exactly who can pick who. Now, in a pool that small, there may be nobody in that pool who can take Buffalo, and you may be the only one. Or perhaps they've all taken Buffalo and San Francisco, and you could take one of those teams. Unlikely that everyone in the pool would have both of those teams not available to them. But even those who have those teams available to them are going to be moving on Seattle as well. There's a chance in a very small pool you will be the only one on either Buffalo or San Francisco. And when you're the only one on a team, that's really the situation you want to get yourself in. Ultimately, that's where we want to be. We want to be in a situation where we could be the only one on a team, and there's not that much difference in Seattle, Buffalo, or San Francisco in their percentages to win this week. So if you were to get on that team, and you were to get on a team where their probability of winning was very similar to that of a team everyone in the pool is going to be on, well, you just put yourself in a situation where you have a really good chance of winning the pool. So this is where we want to get to. Those of us in large size pools, we're not close to there yet, but that's the logic you want to have every week in the pool. How do we get there? So in a small pool, you have a chance to take it down this week just with taking Buffalo or San Francisco if you have that pick available to you. So I would strongly suggest that. When we look at the survivor sheet, the spreadsheet, that I developed. This is at 50%. Let's just quickly go down to 0%. And you see at 0%, Buffalo and Seattle become the best possible plays because they have the highest likelihood of winning. We get that. We've talked about it many times. When we weight it 25% future value, it doesn't really change all that much. Let's bump it up to 50 and see what happens here. Now, again, I've talked about Buffalo and San Francisco being two options for you to get yourself off of Seattle, especially in smaller pools. I don't mind that play in larger pools either, even at the 50% here, to get yourself on Buffalo and off of Seattle or on San Francisco, even though there's some future value or a lot of future value on both of those teams. I don't mind the move. Now, the real sharp play here is going to come in medium-sized pools to really large pools or extra large pools, and that is Tampa. You see Tampa kind of popping up as a potential play here. Tampa and Washington, I'm going to throw in the same boat, and I'm going to show you why in a second. But these are a couple of teams with very little future value. Tampa, Washington, let's look at the Survivor grid and see what I'm talking about. Tampa, this week, not a huge favorite. Washington, not a huge favorite. I get that. But look at Tampa for the rest of the year. They're not going to be favored again until Carolina, week 13. All right? So there's a good likelihood that you'll never want to use Tampa. Now, obviously, you've got better options this week. But think about if we get chaos up at the top here with Seattle. And this strategy really is going to come into play if you've used Buffalo and San Francisco. Because if you haven't, you may want to lean towards one of those teams. Now, again, what that does to you is maybe handcuff you in the future, gives you less options in the future. But even if you have Buffalo and or San Francisco available to you, take a look at Tampa in larger size pools. Because, again, very little future value. If you were to get Seattle to lose, you're going to not only increase your equity in the pool because of the fact that you're going to lose over 50% of the pool on a Seattle loss, but you're going to also increase your equity because you're taking a team with very little future value, right? If I were to buy your pool, I would want to buy a pool, of course, that took teams that have very little future value in it over a pool or an entry in a pool that used all the better teams. So if you've already used up San Francisco and Buffalo and Kansas City and the top teams in the league, that line is going to be much less valuable to me than if you've used Tampa and Washington and teams like that in order to get yourself to the point where you're at, because now you're locked and loaded to take the best teams here down the stretch where others are going to be having to take a lot more risk. And not only that, you're going to be taking the best teams when there are a lot less people on those teams, therefore giving you the ability to have high leverage. We love finding spots where we can be off of the team everybody else is on in a large pool especially. That's how you're going to win it. That's how you're going to knock entries out of that pool in a really quick way while you hopefully advance. So that's the strategy that we're looking at for this week. Let's jump back into Survivor Grid and just see what we need here for the next few weeks. Week 8, how's it looking? Miami, again, probably a team that you've taken, maybe a team that got you here last week. The Chargers are a team unlikely that you've taken so far, so likely they'll be a very popular pick next week. Kansas City and Buffalo, Baltimore, all teams that have been taken quite a bit. Detroit's going to be another team that not a lot of people have taken yet. So there's going to be a mix of people. Most people will be next week on Detroit and the Chargers, right? So I don't love next week as much as I do this week in getting a really high leverage play, although you could potentially do that. You know, San Francisco, again, they're going to pop up in most weeks. Philly's going to be a potential play, Dallas, but these are all really big teams with other opportunities to take them in the at the rest of the season, right? And the picks are going to be more spread out next week than they are this week, right? When you're concentrated on that one team this week, that's what gives you the really high leverage situation, because when the picks get spread out over a large number of teams, then the likelihood that we lose a whole lot of teams in that week diminishes, right? We're going to lose some teams, no doubt, as we spread them out, but we're not going to get a chance to build that huge amount of equity all in one shot. Let's look at week 9. Vegas pops up again, or Vegas pops up for the first time. They're going to be popping up again in week 10. The Chargers are popping up again at the Jets. So that's a team some people may hold off on them against Chicago in week 8 in hopes of taking them in week 9. We see New Orleans. That's a team that we haven't seen yet really on the Survivor grid. So New Orleans against Chicago, that's going to be a very popular pick. Cleveland, a team most people haven't taken yet, it's going to be a popular pick against Arizona. So you can see that there's going to be weak teams that a lot of people are going to be on. So if you have the ability to maybe maneuver away and not take the same exact line as a lot of these people are going to be taking, that could be advantageous. But again, because the fact that there's going to be multiple options, the Chargers, New Orleans, Cleveland, that's going to be way more spread out than the situation we have this week where everyone's going to be on Seattle. So I think this is one of those weeks where we have to take some risk. In order to ever achieve anything of great stature, you're always going to have to take a lot of risk, whether it's in betting or investing or just in life in general, in order to get to something or achieve something that is very unlikely but has a great reward when you achieve it. You're going to have to take risk. This could be the week that risk is needed in all formats. Well, not necessarily all formats, but in very large formats for sure. Mid-sized formats also, you could be thinking about taking that risk. The small formats, again, you're going to want to, if you're going to get off of Seattle, I'd love to see you potentially have Buffalo or San Francisco. This would not be the week. I'd want to hold those teams off for the future in a small pool. I would jump on both of those teams now, even Kansas City as a potential option for you, because again, you have a shot to just about win your pool. And if you're in that situation, you could start thinking about hedging as well. If you're down to less than 10 people, let's say in your pool, you could start to think about hedging. By hedging, what I would do is take a portion of what I put into the pool. If it was a $100 entry, maybe I would put a small hedge this week. It's going to really depend on where you see the amount of entries in your pool going to, how many are left in your pool. What you'd want to do is just leave me a comment down below. I'll help you with hedge betting. I'll help you with your picks this week. You guys know I love you when you comment, but give me as much details as you possibly can, what you're looking at, how many entries are in your pool, and what you can take, who you have left to take, who you've taken already in the past. Give me as many details as you possibly can, and I'd be happy to help you guys with your pools. Again, we have less and less people alive in these survivor pools. So if you could do us a huge favor, like these videos, subscribe, check out the Sharp app. Use that code SURVIVOR to get you 20% off of our pro model and our pro subscription. That's going to really help you guys who are into sports betting. I promise you that. All right, guys, that is it for me this week. Questions always down below. I'm going to answer them all week long. Let's survive this week and hopefully get ourselves in a position to win some of these pools. This is the week.